So good evening. Hope we can start the class.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Today's class is a little bit lengthy one, so we'll start it. Okay. So those who have last lecture PPT, yes, I have already given to the coordinator. Please ask. The PowerPoint I have already given. Please ask from that. Okay. So today's class is about joints. So this class is very, very, very important because it forms a basis of the main class of skeletal system. Okay, so today's class we are going to study about joints, and you have only 2 or 3 more classes left to finish off the general topics. So probably by next week or by the coming next weeks we can finish off the classes, I guess. Okay.
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt. I want to make one or two announcements regarding the previous class. Hello? Am I
Please-
audible?
Please go on, sir, please.
पिछली क्लास में कुछ स्टूडेंट्स ने डिस्टरबेंस क्रिएट किया था जिसकी वजह से उनका एडमिशन हमने कैंसिल किया है। इस बार मैं सभी को स्ट्रिक्टली वार्निंग दे रहा हूँ और इंस्ट्रक्शंस भी दे रहा हूँ। जो लोग अपने नाम से ज्वाइन नहीं हुए हैं वो लोग अपने अभी मीटिंग को लीव करें और अपने नाम से ज्वाइन करें, अदरवाइज आपको रिपोर्ट करके इस वेबिनार से रिमूव किया जाएगा और आपको नेक्स्ट क्लास भी अटेंड करने नहीं दिया जाएगा। अगर ऐसी कोई हरकत होगी, क्लास में डिस्टरबेंस क्रिएट होगा, तो आपका इमीडिएटली एडमिशन कैंसिल किया जाएगा। यहाँ से ये अगेन एंड अगेन मैं रिपीट कर रहा हूँ हर क्लास में, फिर भी वो चीज़ें हो रही है। नेक्स्ट टाइम आपको वार्निंग नहीं दी जाएगी, कोई इंटीमेशन नहीं दिया जाएगा, डायरेक्टली आपका एडमिशन कैंसिल कर दिया जाएगा। एम आई क्लियर? Ma'am, you can continue now.
Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you, sir. So, so today's class, we are going to study about joints. And joints, I have already told you, it forms the basis of the skeletal system we are going to study in the future classes. So we'll study about the definition first. Joints are the regions of skeletal system where 2 or more bonds meet and articulate. So articulate, it is a term that is specific for joints. Articulate means 2 or more bonds coming together and working as a unit. 2 or more bonds coming together and working as a single unit. That is meant by articulation. Okay. So when you look here, you can see 3 bonds. I have mentioned it. One is clavicle, one is scapula, one is shoulder, and these 3 bonds together forms a joint. And that joint is actually the shoulder joint. And these 3 bonds act together to produce various movements and actions. Okay. So what are the functions of a joint? It facilitates growth and it helps in movement. So the definition is, it is a region of skeleton where 2 or more bonds meet and articulate. So articulate means when the bones come together and move in a single way or a move as a common unit to produce various movements. Okay, so that is meant by articulation. Okay. Yes. Coming to its classification, children, students, please note this classification is very, very important. So first, we classify the joints into 2 types. One is synarthrosis, another one is diarthrosis. So can you please mute the mic? I think somebody's mic is on. Sheikh Zeba. Please mute the mic. Yes. Okay. So the joints are widely classified into 2 types. One is synarthrosis and another one is diarthrosis. So see, arthrosis or arthritis, you might have heard about arthritis and all. So arthrosis, arthritis, everything is a term which is used to represent a joint. Okay. So synarthrosis, there are 2 types of joints. One is fibrous joints, another one is cartilaginous joints. So synarthrosis, there are 2 types, fibrous joints and cartilaginous joints. Okay. So we'll see its sub-classifications one by one. So synarthrosis, I told you, it is of two types, fibrous joints and cartilaginous joints. The fibrous joints are again subdivided into 1, 2, and 3. Sutures, gomphosis, and syndesmosis. So the terms will be a little bit newer for you. So please take time and study about this. So just listen to the class for the time being. You can study the slides by heart, all these things later. Okay. So have a concept at the end of the class. So fibrous joints are of three types: sutures, gomphosis, and syndesmosis. And the cartilaginous joints are of two types: primary cartilaginous joint and secondary cartilaginous joint. So synarthrosis are of two types: fibrous joints and cartilaginous joint. Cartilaginous joint is again subdivided into two: primary and secondary. Fibrous joints are subdivided into three: sutures, gomphosis, and syndesmosis. Okay. So first we are going to study about fibrous joints. So fibrous joints means the bones are connected by fibrous connective tissue. So it provides only very little movement. So this joint is not a typical joint, so that it doesn't have a joint cavity. There is no cavity present in the joint. Only the bones are connected by fibrous connective tissue. So this joints will not produce any movement. So the examples are, the further classification of fibrous joints are sutures, gomphosis, and syndesmosis. Sutures, gomphosis, and syndesmosis. So first we are going to study about sutures. So now look at this picture. You can see it is the skeleton of the skull, and you can see some lines I have drawn and mentioned it as sutures. So where is sutures present? It is restricted to skull, and it is separated by membrane derived from connective tissue. So as age advances, what happens? These sutures will obliterate. They will go off. The sutures will no longer remain as age advances. So sutures are restricted to the skull of a human being, and this sutures, two bones are separated by membrane, and as age advances, what happens? This sutures obliterate. As age advances, the sutures obliterate.
Ma'am, till what age are these seen?
Sorry.
Until what age of an adult are the sutures visible?
Yeah. So I have mentioned it as age advances, the sutures are obliterated. So most probably the sutures get obliterated after our 50s and 60s. Okay. So till 50s and 60s, we all of us have sutures in the body. Actually, the sutures, it depends, it starts degenerating or obliterating from mid 30s. Okay, so it will be highly visible at the start of 20s and 30s. After 30s, the sutures will start obliterating. So it will not be that much visible after your 30s. And in some people, it will go off by 50 years. Okay, so it is not mandatory that all the sutures should go off. It depends upon the genetics of the person. Okay, it may go off or may not go off. Right.
Ma'am,
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes. Yeah. All right.
what is the difference in function? What is the impact when a suture obliterates?
Sorry, I didn't get you. Can you please repeat?
What impact happens on the body or the brain if the suture obliterates?
Yes. Okay. So when the suture goes off, no impact happens to the body because the brain has already developed. when you reach your puberty, the brain is already developed. So if the suture goes or not goes, it doesn't make any impact to the body. Okay. The only problem when it comes is that when you met an accident or something like that, it will become difficult to operate the skull. That's all. No impact happens to the body as such when you are healthy.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
So look at this picture. It is something which shows the structure of a sutural joint. Don't look at so many things. I have mentioned so many things. Just look at the points I'm telling. So you can see this is a bone and this is another bone, and the two bonds are connected by fibrous tissue. So this fibrous tissue here is a suture. So this is how a sutural joint will look like. Two bonds and they are bridged by a fibrous tissue. Okay, so there is no joint cavity and it allows only very minimal movement. Okay, so now we are going to study about the types of sutures. So sutures were an example for were under the classification of fibrous joints. Now we are going to study about different types of sutures. Okay. So now look at this picture. You can see that the sutures are having serrations at the borders. So this is one bone, this is another bone, and between them you can see some irregularly shaped sutures. So these irregularities are in the form of a serration. So we call it as serration. It is in the form of a jigsaw pattern. So such sutures are called as serrate suture. And the example is the suture which I have shown here marked in red is an example of, it is a sagittal suture. Okay, so sagittal suture is an example of serrate suture. So how is the appearance of serrate suture? The sutures are arranged in jigsaw fashion. Okay, so that is the first category of sutures. And serrate suture, the example is sagittal suture. Okay, so next one is denticulate suture. Denticulate suture. So when you look here, you can see two bones. So the two bones are, the one bone which is in the posterior part is the occipital bone, and the other bone which is on the side is the parietal bone. So between the parietal bone and the occipital bone, you have a suture called as lambdoid suture. So between the parietal and the occipital bone of the skull, you have a suture called as lambdoid suture. So look at the suture, it is having teeth-like projections. The sutures are in the form of teeth-like projections in some areas, and that is why this suture is called as denticulate suture. Okay, so don't think that all of the parts of the suture should have those teeth-like projections. For example, look here, it is not having that much prominent projections, but when you look here, it looks like the lateral canine teeth, and this part looks like the incisor teeth. Okay, so it actually varies, and generally we say that these sutures are in the form of teeth-like projections, and these are example are lambdoid suture. So lambdoid suture is seen between occipital bone and parietal bone of the skull. Okay.
Like projection.
So the next type of suture is the squamous suture. Squamous. So I hope you remember the epithelium which we have already studied, simple squamous epithelium. So what the type of cell, what was the appearance of cell in the simple squamous epithelium? Can anyone remember?
Flat.
Flat cells.
Flat single hair cell.
Yes,
Flat
flat
cells.
cells. So just like that, here the articular surfaces are relatively flat. Okay, so you can see the difference between the denticulate suture and the squamous suture. So look at the squamous suture. It is not having much projections. It is relatively flat. It is not completely flat. It is relatively flat. And where is this suture seen? It is mainly seen between parietal. So this bone, the arrow I'm pointing it is the parietal bone, and the arrow I'm pointing it now around the ear is the temporal bone. So the suture between parietal and temporal bone is an example for squamous suture. So squamous, always remember it means flat. So here also the sutures are relatively flat in appearance.
जी का मतलब क्या
Then
होता है?
next,
Example.
the next.
उदाहरण.
So please switch off the mic. I mean, mute the mic if you are not answering. Please mute the mic. So plain suture. So plain suture means, look at this picture. Here you can see the suture is in the form of a line. It is in the form of a straight line. So that is why the sutures are called as plain sutures. That means the articular surfaces are plain and they are fairly smooth. So the example as this is actually the hard palate of the body. So you know where is hard palate? It is actually to the opposite or the upper part of the tongue. Upper part of the oral cavity is called as hard palate. So in the hard palate, there is a suture called as median palatine suture. So that is what you are seeing here. It is in this middle and that is median palatine suture. So that is an example for plain suture. Okay. So the last one among the sutures is something which is called as shin dialysis. Shin dialysis. So that means a ridge of one bone fits into the groove of another bone. Look at this picture. This yellow color thing is a bone, and this bone is V in shape, and that bone is called as vomer bone. And into the concavity of the vomer bone, another bone is getting fitted into, and that bone is sphenoid. So this joint formed between the vomer bone and the sphenoid bone is an example for shin dialysis. So this example is very, very important. It's the most frequently asked MCQ question. It is the only example of shin dialysis. The example is joint between vomer bone. So vomer bone is V in shape, and this bone is the rostrum of sphenoid. Actually, where it is seen, it is actually behind the nasal cavity, that is behind the nose and the base of the skull. So that cannot be seen when you just look at the skeleton. Before that, you have to cut the front bones and you have to dissect deep into the skeleton. Then only you can see this joint. You cannot directly see this joint in a skeleton. Okay, so it is deep inside the base of the skull. It is very deep inside the face. So this bone is vomer bone, and another bone which is articulating with it is the sphenoid bone. So both of them will form a joint, and that is called as shin dialysis. Yes. So that is all about sutures. So I'll repeat it once again. So sutures means, it is always remember, sutures are seen in skull. Yes for yes. So sutures are seen only in skull mainly. So what is it? It is an example for fibrous joint. So the types of sutures are serrate suture. So serrate suture, the articular surfaces are in jigsaw fashion. Example is sagittal suture. Then denticulate suture, which has teeth-like projections. The example is lambdoid suture. So it is seen between occipital bone and parietal bones. Then next suture is squamous suture. Easy to remember. Squamous always means flat. So this see, please switch off the mic. See, please mute the mic. It is causing very disturbance to the class. Mohammed Saif, please mute your mic.
ಹೌದಾ ನಾನು ದವಾಖಾನೆಗೆ ಬಂದೆ ಅದೇ ಬೆಟ್ಟ ಯಾವಾಗ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೇನೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಇತ್ತು ಉಳ್ದಾಗ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ರಿ ಬರ್ರಿ
अनस मेराज
ಇಲ್ಲ ಬರ್ರಿ ನಾವು
अपना माइक ऑफ करो भाई। स्नेहा मोहन, आयशा सिद्दीका, रिहान।
So squamous sutures means the articular surfaces are relatively flat. Okay, so it's just easy to remember. Squamous always means flat. So these sutures are seen between parietal bone and temporal bones. Then there is another type of suture called as plain suture. So just remember that plain means it is always fairly smooth and it is in the form of a straight line. So it is present in the hard palate and the suture name is median palatine suture. And the last and the most important one among the sutures is shin dialysis. And remember, students, it is the only example is rostrum of sphenoid and vomer bone. So where is it located? It is located very posterior, very deep to the nose or the nasal cavity and to the base of the skull. So when you just directly look into a skeleton, you cannot directly see it. For that, you have to dissect deep inside. Okay. So rostrum of sphenoid and vomer bone is an example for shin dialysis. So fibrous joints, one classification we have completed, that is sutures. And now we are going to see the second one, that is called as gomphoses. So fibrous joints we have divided into three types: sutures, gomphoses, and syndesmosis. In that, sutures are over. Now we are studying about gomphoses. So gomphoses means it is called as peg and socket joint. It is called as peg and socket joint. So here it is actually present in the teeth. The teeth, how is it fitting into the alveolar socket, is an example for gomphoses. Again, the only example for gomphoses is teeth in alveolar socket. So another term for gomphoses is it is called as peg and socket joint. Another example for this gomphoses is peg and socket joint. So the example is, another term for gomphoses is peg and socket joint. The example is fixation of teeth in alveolar socket. So now coming to the last classification of fibrous joint, it is syndesmosis. So syndesmosis. Here, so many questions. See, is my voice clear? Ma'am, your voice is clear. It's from your side. Ma'am's voice is clear. Can all of you hear my voice clearly?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, students. All. So the last classification of fibrous joint is syndesmosis. Syndesmosis. So it is a fibrous connection between bones, two bonds. It is a fibrous connection between two bonds, and we call them as interosseous ligament or membrane. So just look at this picture. You can see two bonds here. One is ulna and another bond is radius. So this, between these two joints, you can see a membrane connected, and that membrane is called as interosseous membrane. So why is it called as interosseous membrane? Because it is present between two long bones. So why sutures were not called as interosseous membrane? Because they were not between long bones. It is in the skull. So it is not between long bones. Only when there is a membrane between long bones, we call it as interosseous membrane. So this joint between radius and ulna formed by this interosseous membrane is called as syndesmosis. So the examples are radio-ulnar joint, and just like the radius and ulna in the leg, we have tibia and fibula. So the examples are radio-ulnar joint and tibio-fibular joint. So the examples are radio-ulnar joint and tibio-fibular joint. Okay. So syndesmosis means there is a fibrous membrane connecting two bonds, and that membrane or ligament is called as interosseous ligament. And the examples are radio-ulnar joint and tibio-fibular joint. Is it clear till?
Ma'am, besides the fixation of teeth, where else do we find the peg and socket joint?
Yes, yes. Here.
Ma'am, we see the peg and socket joint and fixation of teeth. Is there any other part where we see such a joint?
Usually in human body, there is no such place where you can see this peg and socket joint. Generally, we say only teeth. Okay.
Okay,
So if
thank
there
you.
is any other part present, I think only teeth is there. The upper teeth and the lower teeth, we can see peg and socket joint. I think that is present only in the teeth. You can say two examples: upper teeth and lower teeth. That's all.
Okay, ma'am, thank you.
Yes. Okay. So look at this picture. You can see in the leg, this bone is fibula and this bone is tibia. So in between fibula and tibia, just look at the second picture. You can see a membrane, and that membrane is interosseous membrane. So that joint is an example for syndesmosis type of fibrous joint. Okay. So we'll see yeah. So sutures, we studied fibrous joints into three classifications: sutures, gomphoses, and syndesmosis. So I'll tell you the names of the sutures. You just tell me the examples for that, if you remember. Okay, don't stress yourself. I know it is very hard to remember the names. So if just try to remember where you can at least recollect something or not. Okay. So the first, so give me an example for plain suture.
And the hard palates.
Yes, in the hard palate, and the name of the suture is median palatine suture. Then serrate sutures,
Sagittal suture.
sagittal suture. So just remember, like S for S, serrate for sagittal sutures. Then denticulate suture,
Lambdoid
Lambdoid
suture.
lambdoid suture. Very good. Then squamous suture,
Sutures
Temporal
between
and
parietal
parietal
and
bones.
temporal bones.
yes, so it is between parietal and temporal bones. Then the most important one, skin dialysis.
Between the rostrum of
Femur
sphenoid bone and
joint
femur
between
vomer
rostrum
bone.
of sphenoid and bone.
Very good. Rostrum of sphenoid bone and vomer. Okay. So now, can you give me an example for gomphosis?
Yes, ma'am.
Only
Fixation of
example.
teeth and alveolar
Mandible
socket.
and maxilla.
Alveolar socket, and another term for gomphosis is peg and
Peg and
socket
socket.
joint. Then another example for syndesmosis.
Radio-ulnar joint or tibiofibular joint.
Radioulnar joint and tibiofibular joint.
Radioulnar joint and tibiofibular joint.
Very good. Radioulnar joint, tibiofibular. Okay. So now we'll go into the second type of joint in synarthrosis, that is cartilaginous joints. So in fibrous joint, between two bones, what was present? Fibrous membrane or fibrous connective tissue. So when it comes to cartilaginous joint, between two articular ends. See, articular ends means it is the end of the bone which forms a joint. Articulating ends means it is the end of the bone which forms a joint. So articular ends are connected by cartilaginous tissue. Here also it allows very restricted movement. So cartilaginous joint, the ends are connected by cartilaginous tissue and they allows only very minimal movement. So the first classification in cartilaginous joint is primary cartilaginous joint, also called as synchondrosis. So when I have taken the cartilage class for you, I have mentioned it as anywhere you say cartilage, we use the same term chondros. The cell of cartilage is called as chondrocyte and the covering of cartilage is called as perichondrium. And here also the joint formed by cartilage is called as synchondrosis. So chondrium is the term which is used for a cartilage. Okay. So primary cartilaginous joint is also called as synchondrosis. And secondary cartilaginous joint is called as symphysis. See, children, students, this syndesmosis, syndialysis, synchondrosis, symphysis, everything is confusing. Everything will be confusing when an MCQ question comes to you. You will get confused with the names of the joints. So I want all of you to study it very thoroughly. Okay, so because it is very confusing. So whenever suddenly somebody says it is symphysis, you will have a doubt in your mind that whether it is primary cartilaginous joint or secondary cartilaginous joint. Okay, so please study it very thoroughly
ma'am.
because it is very, very important and it is a
Excuse
very
me, ma'am.
basic one. Sorry.
Ma'am, can you please show the last two slides from syndesmosis? I missed that part.
Yes. Just a minute. Yeah, this one.
Yes, ma'am. Slides after this, before cartilaginous joint.
This one.
Yes, ma'am. And after it.
Cartilaginous joint, it is of two types. Primary cartilaginous joint is called as synchondrosis. See, can all of you hear me?
Yes,
I'm audible,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
Yes, because my internet, something is wrong with my internet connection. Yeah, so we'll continue for the day. So cartilaginous joint is of two types. One is primary cartilaginous joint, also called as synchondrosis. Next one is secondary cartilaginous joint, which is also called as symphysis. Okay, so we'll see it in detail. So synchondrosis. So it is a primary cartilaginous joint. So it is almost exclusively associated with the growth plate. So Jasmine madam might have taken about growth plate. It is actually seen between epiphysis and diaphysis of a bone. So this growth plate is a major example for synchondrosis. So what will happen for the synchondrosis? It can ossify and form a bone. Okay, so in when a person become mature or after puberty, most of the bones are fused and most of the growth plates are converted into bone. So what is the peculiarity of synchondrosis? They can, even though it is formed by a cartilage, it can ossify and form a bone. Okay. So primary cartilaginous joint, the example is junction between epiphysis and diaphysis of long bone. Then next one is symphysis. So symphysis is a little bit different. The other term is secondary cartilaginous joint. It is defined by presence of thick pad of fibrocartilage. So I hope you remember studying the types of cartilage, hyaline, elastic cartilage and fibrocartilage. Here also the symphysis is formed of fibrocartilage and it is present between two articulating surfaces. So what is present in between the articulating surfaces? It is fibrocartilage. So it occurs along the median plane of the body. So it is always in the center median planes of the body. One of the example is pubic symphysis. So here you can see the bone you are seeing. This one is the pelvis. And in the anterior part of the pelvis, you have a bone called as pubic bone. And in between pubic bone, the green colored or the blue colored structure you are seeing is the symphysis joint. So we call that joint as pubic symphysis. So always remember the symphysis is seen along the median plane of the body. It is seen along the median plane of the body. And which cartilage is present here? Fibrocartilage. Fibrocartilage is present here. So other examples are symphysis mentae. Just a minute, children. Yes. So other examples are, you have a similar symphysis in the mandible and that part we call it as again in the midline and that is called as symphysis mentae. Symphysis mentae, which is present in the center part of the mandible. So one example was pubic symphysis, and another example is again in the center of the mandible, and that is called as symphysis mentae. Then another example for the symphysial joint is intervertebral disc. Again, that is present in the median plane of the body, middle part, that is posterior middle. We have vertebral bodies, and in between them we have the intervertebral disc. So this intervertebral disc is again an example for symphysial joint or symphysis, also called as secondary cartilaginous joint. Okay, so this is all about the cartilaginous joint. I'll tell once again. Cartilaginous joint, always remember, it is formed by cartilaginous tissue, and the examples are primary cartilaginous joint, also called as synchondrosis, and the secondary cartilaginous joint, also called as symphysis. So what is the peculiarity of synchondrosis? It can ossify and form a bone. So major example is growth plate. And symphysis, it will not ossify, and the cartilage present there is fibrocartilage. And the most important point, it occurs along the median plane of the body, center of the body. One of the example is pubic symphysis. Another example is center of mandible, that is symphysis mentae. And another example, last example is intervertebral disc. Okay, is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me. Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
So we have studied so many sin things. So things starting with SY, we have studied syndialysis, syndesmosis, symphysis, and synchondrosis. So all of you just try to differentiate its different terms. Okay, so don't confuse. And now we are going to study about the biggest joint in human body, or the largest joint, that is called as synovial joint. Okay.
Excuse
So
me,
before
ma'am.
studying synovial joint, we'll just make an idea about bones in different parts of the body, mainly in the upper limb and the lower limb. In the upper limb, you have a bone present in the arm, which is called as humerus. In the forearm, you have radius and ulna. And in the hand, palm, you have carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges. And in the lower limb, you have pelvis. Then there is a hip bone. There is femur in the thigh, and in the leg you have tibia and fibula. In between femur and tibia you have a small bone called as patella. You have tarsals, metatarsals, and phalanges. Okay, so keeping this idea in your mind, we'll study about the synovial joint, also called as diarthrosis. So synovial joints are the largest joints in the body, or the most common joints in human body. So the other term for synovial joints are diarthrosis. Okay. So coming to synovial joints. So the two joints which we have studied, that is fibrous and cartilaginous joints, they were not having something called as joint cavity. So in this picture, you can see that the above bone and the bone below, there is a cavity in between them, and that is the peculiarity of synovial joint. It possesses joint cavity. That is the main peculiarity of synovial joints, and the articular ends are enclosed by fibrous capsule. So this is the articular end of a bone, upper bone. This is the articular end of the lower bone. And these two bones are enclosed. Can you see the outer covering? That is enclosed by a covering, and that is called as fibrous capsule. And this joint is most evolved and freely movable. So these are the peculiarities of synovial joint. The first and foremost peculiarity is it possesses a joint cavity, and the articular ends of the bones are connected by fibrous capsule. It is the most evolved and freely movable. Okay, so these are the three peculiarities of synovial joint. So for a joint to be called a synovial joint, it has to have all the three qualities which I have mentioned. Okay. So coming to the peculiarities in detail, first one is fibrous capsule, ligaments, synovial membrane, articular cartilages, bursae, and fat. So we'll see what it is one by one. First one is fibrous capsule. So fibrous capsule is something which invests the joint like a sleeve. So when you put a sleeve on your hand, it will invest the joint like a sleeve, and it is made up of connective tissue. What is the function? It stabilizes the joint. So fibrous capsule, it invests the joint like a sleeve. It is made up of connective tissue, and the main function is it stabilizes the joint. Then next one is articular cartilage. So articular cartilage means what type of cartilage is that? It is hyaline cartilage present over the ends of articulating bones. So when you look here, so this is a bone above, this is a bone below. At the ends, can you see something marked it as articular cartilage? So it is made up of hyaline cartilage. So three classifications of cartilage we have studied in the last class: hyaline, elastic, and fibrocartilage. In that, articular cartilages are made up of hyaline cartilage. So they are present over the ends of articulating bones. So what is the function? They provide smooth friction for free movement. The function of articular cartilage is that they provide smooth friction for free movement. Okay. So next one is ligaments. So ligaments is something which connects two bones. So as you might have studied in your school +1 and +2 classes, ligaments are something which connects two bones. So again, what is the function? It strengthens the fibrous capsule of the joint. So it doesn't strengthen the joint directly, it strengthens the fibrous capsule instead. Okay, so joints are covered by an immediate covering called as fibrous joint, that fibrous capsule, and this fibrous capsule is strengthened again by ligaments. So did you get that point?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, so the joints are
Ma'am, please
immediately
repeat the
covered by fibrous capsule, and this fibrous capsule are again strengthened by ligaments. Then coming to something called as synovial membrane, and the definition is very important. It is a vascular membrane of connective tissue lining inside the fibrous capsule. So look at the fibrous capsule, that is blue in color outside. Just inner to the fibrous capsule, you can see something which is drawn in red color. So this is the synovial membrane, and what is the peculiarity? It is a vascular membrane. It is lying inside the fibrous capsule. And the second point is that it does not cover the articular cartilages. So look at the picture. You can see synovial membrane which is not covering the articular cartilage. You can see it only inside the fibrous capsule. Okay. So that is the peculiarity of synovial membrane. It only lines the fibrous capsule. It is absent over the articular cartilage. So synovial membrane along with fibrous capsule is called as articular capsule. That is an MCQ question. Synovial membrane along with fibrous capsule is called as articular capsule. Okay, so what do you mean by articular capsule? It is synovial membrane with fibrous capsule. Then, so next is the functions of synovial membrane. What is the function? It secretes synovial fluid and it keeps the joint lubricated. So for movement, you need lubrication, and that lubrication is provided by synovial fluid, and that synovial fluid is secreted by synovial membrane. Okay. Then composition of synovial fluid. Since it is a vascular membrane, it contains blood-derived proteins. It contains hyaluronan and lubricin, and the cells are monocyte, lymphocytes, and macrophages. So this is the biochemical composition of synovial fluid. It has some proteins. It has some chemicals like hyaluron and lubricin. It has some cells like monocytes, lymphocytes, and macrophages. Yes. So the second last one is something called as bursae. Bursae. So bursae is a pouch-like sac of connective tissue filled with synovial fluid. So here you can see that this is a shoulder joint and this is the fibrous capsule. And outside the fibrous capsule, you can see another bursae, another sac of connective tissue which is filled with synovial fluid. So this sac is called as bursae. So where is it located? It is most commonly located between tendon and bone and muscle and bone. So whenever there is a muscle immediately related to bone, you have a bursae there. And whenever there is a tendon which is closely related to a bone, you have a bursae there. Okay. So bursae is nothing. It is a separate sac containing synovial fluid. It is again seen very close to synovial joints. Then last one is fat pads. So fat pads of joint is called as Haversian pad of fat. So it is present inside the joint capsule. So when you look here, you can see femur, patella and tibia. So this is a knee joint. And the yellow color structure you are seeing is the fat of the knee joint. So this fat is present in synovial joints and that is called as Haversian pad of fat. Okay, so that is the classification of, that is a peculiarity of synovial membrane. So peculiarity synovial joints. The first one is fibrous capsule. So fibrous capsule is something which invests the joint like a sleeve. It is consist of connective tissue and the main function is it stabilizes the joint. Then the next one is articular cartilage. It is present at the ends of articulating bones and it is made up of hyaline cartilage. So what is the function? It provides smooth friction for free movements. Then ligaments are connective tissue which connects two bones. And the function is it strengthens the fibrous capsule of the joint. Strengthens the fibrous capsule of the joint. Then synovial membrane is very, very important. The definition is a vascular membrane of connective tissue lining inside the fibrous capsule. It is absent over the articular cartilage. So synovial membrane along with fibrous capsule is called as articular capsule. The function is it secretes synovial fluid and that synovial fluid helps in the lubrication of a joint. Then compositions are, it is made up of blood-derived proteins, hyaluron, lubricin, and cells like monocyte, lymphocyte, and macrophages. So bursae, it is a sac of connective tissue filled with synovial fluid. So it is found near certain joints. Don't think that all the joints have bursae, only some complex joints have bursae. Then fat pads. So fat is present around some joints and that is called as Haversian pad of fat. So what is the chat happening here? What is the function of bursae? So the function of bursae is that Protects from friction. Yes, somebody have answered it. Bursa is actually, it is between joint. It is outside the joint. It is between bones and muscles and ligaments like that. So the main function is when a muscle is constantly moving, when it comes in contact with a hard surface like bone, it will cause damage to the muscle. So to prevent that, we have a bursa in between them so that the muscle is not harmed severely. Okay, once again I'll tell you. So when there is a muscle which is closely related to a bone, so when that muscle is moving, that muscle will move around the hard surface of the bone, which causes damage to the muscle. So to prevent damage to the muscle, these bursas are present in the joint so that the muscle is not harmed severely. So in simple terms, we can call it as to protect from friction. Okay, so this is Haversian pad of fat. So classification, I think I have class scheduled for another batch. So we'll finish off by today and we'll take another half an hour from the next week of your sessions and we'll finish it off the rest classes. So rest we have some classifications left of the synovial joints. Okay. So I hope we'll finish this now and there's some more slides are there. So we'll take half an hour from the next class. All right.
Yes,
Ma'am, may you
ma'am.
just please
Yes, ma'am.
explain? Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
May you just
Yes.
explain what does investing a joint like a sleeve means?
Yeah, investing a joint like sleeve means nothing like wearing a dress over the body because it is very closely attached to the body, right? Just imagine wearing a gloves in your hand. So that gloves is closely related to our hand. Just like that, in between a joint is the presence of fibrous capsule. That means the fibrous capsule is very close to the joint. Simply means that. Okay.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. So, all right, children, please read this slide till this. I'll share the PowerPoint. You can get it from the coordinator. All right. So
Excuse
thank you
me,
so
ma'am.
much. We'll see you in the next class. Okay. So the portions are not complete yet. We'll take another half an hour in the next week. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
So thank you so
Okay, ma'am.
much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
Thank you,
ma'am.
ma'am.